Hey pilots, Craig Gamma with Paraglider Service USA, and had a question out there on how to mark lines when you're making a paraglider lines. When I sew them up for you all, obviously they're custom made to the exact lengths you needed, whether it's factory lengths or matching in the opposite side line. In any case, after I made one end loop, I'll go ahead and secure it at the anchor I have on the floor, and then run the line adjacent to the tape measure that I have glued to the floor here, and then I'll go ahead and mark it appropriately for making the second end loop. And to do that, you're going to need a couple tools. You need just a good ballpoint ink pen and a gauge, spring actuated gauge that's in kilograms, preferably. This one does pounds on one side, and then it has kilograms on the other side. 5 kilograms or 11 pounds is what we want to tension lines on it for marking. Initially I'll actually bring it all the way up to 8 kilograms to like pre-tension it, and do that for 3 seconds, and then I'll back it off to 5 kilograms to make my mark on the line. Now when we make lines and we sew the second end loop, there is some anticipated shrinkage, and each line diameter and material type has a specific amount depending on the length of your end loop, so the stitching. So for example, if my end loop's 100 millimeters of stitching versus 130 versus 110 versus 90, 60, the amount of shrinkage is going to vary. But once you've document what those are for each specific line type and the length of your end loop stitching, then you'll know what to anticipate. So you have to add that amount to each desired length. So if you want 500 millimeters, you're going to have to do 505 on certain line types, and other line types is going to be 507. So the end result ends up being 500 millimeters, let's say. So those are things you got to keep in mind. Those are things that, I have for every line type, every size, and every length of stitching that I'm going to be using for my end loops. I have it all documented to what the anticipated shrinkage is going to be, so I know what to do. But let's go down to the basics here on how to go ahead and pull the lines under tension and how to mark them, because there's a little bit of art to that as well. So, for example, most line types, this is a sheet line here. When you get 1 millimeter or larger, it's pretty easy. The line doesn't slip all that much. And so what I do is I take my gauge. I'll just do a lark's foot here, girth hitch, like so, and stick my the end through it here like that, and I'll let it just slide up. Oops, I went off camera, so let me make it over here more. I'll just watch my fingers. I don't know if you can see. I just do this, make a girth hitch, and stick it through there and let it cinch up. Again, I went off camera. Well, I'll bring it into camera. There's my little girth hitch. You can see here, like so. And then as I pull the line under tension now, I'll go to 8 kilograms, which you can't see, it's off camera. Hold that for 3 seconds, and then I'll back off to 5 kilograms, and then I'll go ahead and make my mark where it's needed. So let's say I need 450 millimeters on this, and this particular line is going to be 5 millimeters I need to add to it for anticipated shrinkage, so I'll make it 455, and I'll make a mark there, and then I'll go ahead and make my end loop in the other room on the sewing machine. And then once I'm done stitching the second end loop, I'll bring it out here and remeasure it to see how it was, and then I'll end up, my goal is to 450 millimeters for this particular line, this example. So that's easy. Here's an unsheathed line. Unsheathed lines of aramid, like this one here, this red one here, are pretty easy as well, unless you get into smaller diameters. This one here is like a 70 kilograms, so it'll do the same thing. It'll hold pretty good with just a lark's foot, or what I call a girth hitch. Let me do it over here a little bit more, so you can hopefully on my camera here, like so. Put my gauge through it, cinch it up. Oops, I went off camera again. But anyhow, this is where it is, and that'll hold really good. So I'm pulling that. This is unsheathed aramid, and it holds. I can pull my 8 kilograms and back off to 5 kilograms. It's not going to slip. The ones smaller diameters, like 25 kilograms and 50 kilogram lines, it'll slip. So what I'll do there is I'll do a girth hitch again, like so, but I will add to that. So in other words, I'll do like another half hitch in here, like so, like that. And sometimes I'll have to actually take this tail, like here, and I'll wrap it around my finger so the tail doesn't slip. And so let me see if I can get this on camera fully so you can understand what I'm saying here. So I'll make my girth hitch down here. I'll stick it in, let it slide down here to tighten up. And then what I'll do is I can do another half hitch here. Or I can just take it, what I do, a lot of times I'll just wrap it around my index finger. And then, let me shorten this thing up. I'm just not getting on camera like I hope. And so what I'm doing is I'm wrapping this around my finger a few times like so. And then when I'm pulling the end of it, the tail's tight. And that's when I get my readings that I want, 8 kilograms initially for 3 seconds, and then back to 5 kilograms to take my measurement, and then I'll do my marking on the line accordingly. This is not going to slip through on the smaller diameter lines. And so that's one example. And then the hardest ones out there are the unsheathed Dyneema. That's this white line here. I'll save this one for last. These are slipperier than snot, I'm telling you. And so my little girth hitch thing is not going to hold for nothing. It's just so slippery. Let me get that girth hitch in here first. I'm probably off camera right now, but it'll get on camera here once I tighten it up. I got bifocals, so I'm okay. So there's my girth hitch that's on there. And that's not going to, I'll pull this thing and it's just going to keep slipping. And so what I got to do is what I was describing earlier, the same darn thing, but I got to realize that it's going to even be more so than the unsheathed aramid. So I'm having a little difficulty here seeing because I have bifocals and I'm looking at the distance portion and I need to look at the reading portion and I just can't get it because I'm trying to do 3 things at once here. Let me get to where there we go. Now we get where I want it to be. Okay, so here's my girth hitch that I want. Okay, and if I pull this under tension, it's just going to keep moving. See, it's just keep moving. So what I'll do is there's probably maybe somebody has some better creative ideas than I do, but I just wrap it on my finger again, like I was telling you, my index finger, the tail, and then I just get the length that I want, so that I can grab the end of the gram gauge here and pull the tension that I desire. And so when I got to wrap that in my finger and I pull this, it's not going to slip. And so I wish I can get all the way on camera here to do this. But I think you got the idea of what I'm talking about. And if you got any questions, just give me a holler and I'll try to clarify it better.